what's going on? So, going in a little bit different of a direction. I have a lot of thoughts on politics and society and that kind of thing. So, I had the idea to address and give my thoughts on the stereotype of black people not tipping. Now, I've been delivering pizzas and Uber Eats for a little while, though I don't always see the person. But for the first little while, I thought the stereotype was kind of true, and I did notice that it seemed like there were a lot of black people that didn't tip me. And I even had a conversation with somebody, and I precluded the conversation with, I'm the farthest you can get from a racist, which is really true. When I'm face to face with somebody, the only thing I care about is their character. Nothing else matters. I mean, I give somebody else a chance. If they're a piece of shit, they're a piece of shit, and I don't think that has anything to do with race. But yeah, I had this conversation with somebody, and I think they were kind of a little bit racist too. We talked about it and our experience a little bit, but that was a long time ago, and since then I've paid a little bit more attention, and it seems to me that tipping and not tipping is a cultural and a socioeconomic thing. It has absolutely nothing to do with race. I mean, most things really have nothing to do with race and more to do with culture. But, since then I've noticed that poor white people stiff me just as much as poor black people. It was just that there's that stereotype that exists, and my subconscious racism that I didn't want to admit was there made the black people that didn't tip me stand out in my mind more, I believe. There are some people who, when you go to somebody's house, you can kind of tell like what kind of house they're in, what kind of state their house is in, like whether they have money or not, generally speaking. And there are people who seem to be poor that will end up tipping, and again, I think that's just a cultural thing. And this seems to be the same percentage, whether it's black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people. Some of those people who were poor or are poor, they were just brought up with values that included tipping to be a thing. And again, that's cultural. That's not racial. I think I have noticed that slightly more poor white people tip than poor black people, and I think I kind of attribute that to like societal anger in black people, an anger towards society in this country, at least in the US, for slavery. I mean, I really believe that slavery set black people back, and kind of the establishment has never really made up for it, has never really looked out for them, has never tried to give that community a leg up. And I think having that anger towards society because of that is completely understandable. And maybe I'm wrong on this observation, but if it's true, I would think that that's the reason why. And another thing, for people who are from other countries, they often don't tip just because, again, cultural customs are different in their country. Tipping isn't necessarily a thing in every country. I know Brazil is a big one where tipping isn't really a thing, and a lot of times Brazilians will not tip. And again, that's cultural. It's not racial. The ignorance kind of bothers me, and this is coming from someone, I'm kind of first and a half generation American. My dad was born in Portugal, my grandparents on my mom's side. So I get the whole, it's hard to learn English, it's hard to learn the customs, but I think at a certain point, you need to learn those things if you want to assimilate yourself into this society. So that kind of bothers me when that seems to be the reason. But again, it seems to be spread across all ethnicities. It's not a racial thing. It's a cultural thing. And one little wild card that I always like to keep in mind for a lot of things: sociopathy, sociopaths. Between 1 and 4% of the human population is sociopathic or psychopathic. That's not that small of a percentage. And obviously something like that is going to be the same. It's the same percentage across all racial lines. So some people, whether they're poor or not, regardless of how they were brought up, they're not going to tip because they don't give a shit. They only care about themselves. They don't have the capacity for empathy. So, like I said, wild card that pays no mind to racial or cultural, stuff. And sociopathy isn't a diagnosis that you can receive. Technically, it's antisocial personality disorder, and within antisocial personality disorder lies sociopaths, psychopaths, borderline personality disorder, in case you were wondering. So that can explain why a lot of individuals do inconsiderate things, such as ordering delivery and not tipping, or going to a restaurant and not tipping. So I just wanted to provide, I guess, my first social commentary, really, because I have opinions on this stuff, and I wanted to call myself out on my own subconscious racism that I had at one point. And, I think humans should be more willing to be self-critical and admit our faults. And I guess I'm just putting this out there because I think we need to have conversations about this sort of stuff. And if we could see past our differences and have a more cohesive society, I think the world would be a better place. So give me your thoughts. I'd be curious to hear them. I'll do my best to answer in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.